answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name, and as we work together toward the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Just a reminder that the meeting is being recorded. Michelle, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Brenda.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. Michelle, I'm not sure. Do you want to maybe go out and come back in? If maybe that would help. Okay, item 1.2 is the approval of the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the agenda for this evening? Is there any questions, additions, deletions to the agenda? Anyone? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? You can just put on your microphone and move it.
I can move.
Okay, is that you, Nancy?
Sorry, yes, it's Nancy.
Okay, so Nancy's moving it. And Paul, are you okay to second it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So moved by Nancy, seconded by Paul. Okay, so tonight we have two presentations. Our first presentation we're starting with is the project search presentation, and that will be, sorry, I'm just trying to monitor the chat. And that will be presented to us by Lisa Baca, who is a special education consultant, and Martha Pickett, who is also a special education consultant, and they'll be presenting a project search presentation for you this evening. At the end of their presentation, we can welcome any questions that might arise, and over to you guys.
Thanks, Brenda. Martha and I are happy to be included and back on the agenda tonight. Before we begin talking about Project Search, I just want to take a minute to thank you all. Last time we were here, we asked for some feedback on our draft transition guide, and we were really happy to have your input, and we have taken some of the suggestions that you've provided, and right now we're currently working on revisions to the draft. So once again, thank you. We really appreciate it. It was very helpful. Okay, so for tonight, Martha and I are thrilled to be telling you about Project Search. Project Search is a transition to work initiative for our students with developmental disabilities, and we came about knowing about Project Search through our ministry project that we have been working on. So it's an outcome of the ministry project that we've investigated and explored Project Search. So we are in the finalization stages of the project, and that's why we're sharing information about it with you tonight. In our discussion tonight, we're going to provide you with a general overview of Project Search, and we'll include a brief analysis of some of the opportunities and benefits of the program. Martha and I are really excited to contribute to this project, and we hope that you share our enthusiasm once we start talking a little bit about it. So as always, we're happy to entertain questions throughout as well, and Brenda said we'll take questions at the end. So Martha, I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to say hello if you wanted to come on and say hello.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you again for having us back for the second time. We're really excited to present this to you this evening, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Martha. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So in a moment, we're going to start by sharing a brief video clip. The reason we're doing this is that Martha and I had the opportunity to attend a launch presentation for Project Search. And when we went to this presentation, we really felt the personal experiences of those involved, and it was really, it was full of passion and a sense of pride. And we thought that this video that we're about to show to you tonight captures some of that same sense of impact that we felt when we went to the presentation. So without further ado, if I can ask Andrea Hughes to show us the brief video clip. Thank you.
Oakville Trafalgar Memorial Hospital. There's a school to work opportunity for students with developmental disabilities.
We've been speaking about what this program is really what I feel like all my experience has together and culminated in Project Search. In the next couple of days.
Project Search is designed to bring employability skills to young adults with special needs.
Remember our please and thank yous?
Teach them how to get out and become independent in the workplace and live full, thriving lives.
This 9-month internship pairs a job site with a teacher and 12 students, 18 to 21, in their final year of the Halton District School Board's Community Pathways program, along with 2 skills trainers from Community Living Oakville.
So 1 pillowcase, 1 blanket for each chair.
We actually have over 20 internships available to our interns at the hospitals. We spend a lot of time initially getting to know our interns so that we can appropriately match them to their needs.
How much do you like your internship?
A lot. I don't have to worry about the pressure, just like I have with my school. It actually learns me new skills and also gets me to learn what it feels like to be in a workplace.
Hunter is down in medical device reprocessing, and what Hunter does is he will receive a list of a surgery that's coming up in the near future and select and choose all the instruments that will be used in that surgery.
The positions that are presented to the interns are so important. They're meaningful, and I think they feel that.
We set very high expectations for our interns, and they rise to those expectations.
There's a lot of us who are very passionate. I happen to have a daughter with special needs who would really benefit from a program like this.
And the jobs that they're doing here at the hospital, they're real jobs. They now see that they have purpose, which I think will take them into the future.
Project Search launched last fall. The goal now is to find additional job site partners like Oakville Hospital so that more students have the opportunities to learn in this experience and to set them up for the future. If you'd like to learn more tonight, you can visit globalnews.ca.
I love the part about setting high expectations and the students, they rise to them.
And you know, if they're taught something, they're going to do it. And so the teacher said they're not just wiping off a table. Mm-hmm. These are real jobs that they would hire them for. And I think, you know, in the last little while, I've been profiling a lot of parents who start things for their kids, start businesses and legacies. And these organizations, this is so needed because there's so much that they can do.
And that's the way to see it, right? There's so much that they can do.
So much.
Gives them such a sense of purpose. That's what we all need, right?
That's right, for sure.
Thanks, Susan.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrea. I think that there were parts of it that were a little bit choppy, so maybe what we'll do at the end of the presentation, I'll just put a direct link to the video so that you could watch it at your own leisure later. We hope that you found that impactful and that the message resonates with you, that there's a focus on what students can do. So just before I begin talking more about Project Search and the transition model, I want to share with you the Project Search philosophy. So I'm just going to read it to you. Here's the philosophy. It is: people with disabilities have the right to choose a path toward education and employment. However, while freedom of choice is given, the right to work is earned. Earning the right to work is dependent upon the student's preparation. And Project Search is something that provides students with the preparation that they need, and the outcome would be gainful employment. So once again, it is a one-year school to work program for young people in their final year of high school with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The goal is competitive employment. There's a total workplace immersion. There's internship rotations, and of course, customized job search assistance. Currently, there's about 600 sites in the US and Canada. We have some local sites in southwestern Ontario, Toronto, Halton, and just this year, Hamilton also joined. It operates like a co-op, and as you saw in the video, the student classroom is the host site, and in that case, it was the hospital. Next slide, please. So if we look at Project Search, the students that are involved are usually 10 to 12 students in the program. In the current sites in Halton and Hamilton, they have kind of a modified version running this year. There are 8 in Halton and 6 in Hamilton, and this is due to COVID. There is a certified instructor, and that is typically a special education experienced teacher, and skills trainers, and those people are provided by our community partners. They are, of course, hosted or housed in the host business, and there's unpaid internships, and again, the outcome is employment in the community. The program is appropriate for students with developmental disabilities, as I've mentioned before, and students that are capable of independent employment. Those might also be students with mild intellectual disability, students that are not earning their Ontario secondary school diploma, so the program is not aligned with credits. So we're targeting supports for students that are non-credit earning. And now I'll turn it over to Martha.
So Project Search has a very rigorous eligibility criteria. Students typically are between 18 and 21 years old. And what that means is that generally they would be doing this in their last year at the secondary school. And for most of our students with developmental disabilities, that would be year 7. But if some of them are eligible for the program and they feel that they want to be leaving earlier, it can be any time along that time frame. And the same thing with students with a mild intellectual disability who may well have earned some credits, a certificate of ed, and may be deciding in their 4th or 5th year that that's the year they'd like to target an opportunity like this. The students have to have appropriate hygiene, social and communication skills, have the ability to take direction and change behavior. Now, these are things that through time, if a program is developed in a school board and you're looking at the students and saying which ones would be great, would this be a great opportunity for? These are the students who, if they're missing 1 or 2 of these things, well, that you build that on their IEP, don't you, over time as you approach that senior age range. Access to transportation, like a co-op placement, like any co-op placement, students have to find their own way to the Project Search host site. And then there's the technical matters of workplaces where, drug screens, background checks, and the big one is, of course, the desire to work. Next slide. What's really impressive about Project Search, which if you go onto YouTube, you'll find lots and lots of videos about the 600 sites operating in the States right now, and also the ones that are now filtering here into Canada, is that they do have a very impressive 75% placement rate upon graduation, which is pretty unprecedented. And I think that can be chalked up a lot to the rigorousness of the program and also the connections that the different supervisory bodies have with each other. That's community partners, the healthcare system, if it's placed in a hospital or whatever workplace it would be, and of course, educators. The Project Search definition of a successful outcome is competitive employment in an integrated setting. And you saw for yourself in the video that these students are doing jobs of complexity, which, the Project Search philosophy is that these students can do jobs in an integrated setting that have complexity, but they need more time to develop the skills. They need to have a little more focused effort on helping them develop those skills, and they're capable of great things. This would be year-round work, 16 hours a week or more. The average is 27, and quite frankly, sometimes that just has to do with the fact that depending on the jurisdiction you're in, you know, it can interfere with pension arrangements. So the thought is that it should be at least full-time, part-time employment, and minimum wage or higher. Next slide. Project Search has its own rigorous curriculum. The Project Search inception was in Cincinnati in 1998. It's been around for quite a while. And I think with the science-based medical model that they started with, they did have a very robust research team that developed over time that monitored it and collected data upon what works and what doesn't work. So the curriculum is very, very well fleshed out. The students typically spend time at their host site in the morning in their classroom, and then they go off once they've done an initial introductory period to their internships for the day, and they come back to their classroom. And the modules that they're working on in their classroom are not surprising ones: team building, workplace safety, technology, self-advocacy, maintaining employment, and financial literacy. I think one of the big benefits of a program like this is that it is evidence-based, and as I've said, a lot of research has gone into ensuring that the model is successful. Okay, next slide. And back to Lisa.
Thank you, Martha. So some of the latest updates that we have is we have identified Milton Hospital as a potential site for the fall of 2020. And if we would start at Milton Hospital, there would be 6 spots for student candidates, again, with the potential to grow to 12, but we would start with 6. Our startup would require a teacher, and we would be providing that. Again, it would be a special education teacher. And there would be a license that would be held jointly by Community Living North Halton and Halton Catholic District School Board. Our next steps would entail teacher selection, publicity regarding the program, parent communication, and these would be things like an open house, albeit it would most likely be virtual, and student selection. That would be a process that is vetted through Project Search, which involves a number of team members, including the school board, including community personnel, the hospital site, and really it would involve a series of skill assessments for our students. There's staff training and site preparation as well. And next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So some of the important benefits of the program is the program model aligns with not only with our ministry project, but also with PPM 156, which is our transition planning. So really it's providing increased opportunities for networking for our students, and this would be facilitated by our community partners. The program also has the potential to expand to other sites and employers within Halton. So it's a good business model for others to follow to involve employment for our students with developmental disabilities. And finally, a really notable benefit of the program is that the resources can inform co-op practices within our board and really function as capacity building for all our school staff. So we would continue to collaborate with Student Success, who we have been collaborating with up until this point, and we'll continue to do that, to work together, to, of course, work on building consistency and best practices with our staff at Home Catholic. So finally, some of our immediate next steps for this week is to continue to share our presentations with school board members. So we're sharing with administrators and our departments heads of special education later in the week. We will be attending an information evening on Project Search this week as well. And we are delighted to continue to promote awareness of the project in our school communities. And we hope that you find this project as exciting as we do, and we look forward to talking much more about it in the future. And we'll entertain questions at this point in time.
Great, thanks so much. I've got a couple of questions, but is there anybody that has questions for Lisa and Martha? Deborah, you have your hand up, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. That's great. The project sounds amazing. I do just have a question about, you mentioned Milton Hospital being signed up for the fall. How are organizations being recruited, so to say, for this? How is that happening?
So in terms of organizations being recruited, we have had our community partners that have assisted us with that. Okay. So they know the community well, and they are the ones networking with our community partners. And the hospital model is something that we have seen work well throughout Project Search on many of the sites. So we have the OTMH that is working locally, but a lot of other Project Search sites have chosen hospitals, and Milton District Hospital was one that our community partner approached, and Halton Healthcare is very on board.
Great. Yeah, no, the hospitals are a great idea.
Right, they're like a little mini community, so there's a lot of opportunities for our students when they're in the hospital. So they're like mini cities, and there's a lot of opportunities for employment.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maria, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. You mentioned part of the process being selecting a teacher. So is that a reassignment of an existing teacher, or is that hiring of a new body for this?
So that's maybe a question that we're still exploring, but that would be something that would be in our superintendent's realm to answer. But I think that's something that we're still exploring at this time, but just know that it will be a special education teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
I don't see anyone else in the chat, so I'm going to ask quick questions, and I apologize if I missed it. I was trying to follow, but I feel like I'm doing 1,000 things at once. So I have 2 questions. So one is around the student selection process. What you might have already done that, so if you did, I apologize if you could repeat it, but what's the process for student selection as far as, because it sounds like the spots are possibly hard to get depending on the level of interest.
So that is a great question, and maybe I'll start, and Martha, but we are still looking at student selection, so that's something that we're going to be learning more about. But what we have seen is that there are skill assessments that would happen. So our teachers, our department heads, our teachers at the school would be our first point of interest or first point of contact to help us with student selection and looking at specific skills. But some of the activities that they would have to do is, I guess, alphabetizing or some of the skills that they assess. There's a whole list that have been provided to us in terms of what they can do. But again, something that we're still continue to get some more information on. But I don't know, Martha, if you want to add something about that we have learned about so far.
Yes, and in the pre-COVID world where everything was just so much easier to do, they had an actual day. So families, would be invited to attend an information evening, and they would receive a package then with the application and sort of their prerequisite skills that would be required. And so then they would walk away deciding, is this something we would like to pursue? And if they wanted to, they'd fill the package out and the students would then attend a skills day. And then that would give all the partners, community living, the hospital and education staff a chance to get to know the prospective students and choose from that group. And what's really interesting, Brenda, is that it isn't necessarily a student who's very, very, very independent already. A lot of those students are already in mainstream co-op and doing well and have a very good chance of getting employment. in my mind, as a former department head, what really intrigued me about this was I knew sometimes we had students that in co-op placements who, with a little extra concentrated effort, would do wonderfully. And I think those kind of students should be a real target here. You know, the ones who aren't going to learn a skill in a couple of weeks, but if it's concentrated in a few months, then they're going to be very, very successful. So that it'll be culled out of that group. And as Lisa said, you know, you'll know more about it when you go through it for the first time. I do think COVID presents a challenge, but it would appear that all these programs are doing a virtual version of skills training. So that'll be an interesting endeavor.
For sure. So just to follow up on that is, and you sort of touched on it a little bit, Martha, but a follow up on that would be, I noticed that it said, obviously, intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. We could sit here all day and talk about what developmental disabilities means. But if I'm looking at children that may have multiple exceptionalities or may have a physical disability, you know, is there a consideration for them to participate in this program with additional supports? So I'm thinking if you have a student in the high school system already who has an EA assignment with them or has some sort of other support, you know, is there opportunities for those students to participate here? And, you know, I look at, while some of the tasks may be physical in nature, I'm sure there's other tasks like, you know, answering the phone or, there's other things. Absolutely, there's other things that could be done that wouldn't require that. So would that be part of the consideration as well for this program?
Well, certainly, I think there's a consideration for students who have multiple identifications. It's not strictly developmental disability, it's developmental disability with autism. Now, in the physical realm, that's actually a good question. I do agree with you that there would be a number of domains that would be appropriate to someone, for example, with a physical disability. So I don't see how that would stop them, but that is something I think we'd have to take back and clarify with Project Search. It's interesting, that isn't something that's come up in conversation, whether or not we have the capability to bring extra support staff in. So that is something we can flesh out further. But I do hear you on that.
Well, the reason I ask is that, and I know that Dan has his hand up, the reason that I ask for that as well is that, you know, I'm familiar with, you know, going to Erin Oak and Holland Bloorview, and you see a lot of, especially at Holland Bloorview, you see a lot of former clients who are now at reception, who are greeters, who are doing a lot of things there. And some of them are quite affected physically and verbally, but they've, you know, found a mechanism to do that. And I just, you know, every time I go in, I think this is such a great idea because, you know, I don't know, I just think it's a great idea. So I'd be curious to see how this rolls along, what the feedback looks like on that piece. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We will take that back.
Thanks.
And I just wanted to add something if I could. And when Martha was speaking, she just, you know, reminded that this is a point we wanted to make as well. That really, for our students, it's the same destination for them. We want to get them employed. And really what it is, it's they have a different journey and they need a more guided journey and they might need a little longer. So Brenda, to your point, we'll definitely take that question back and find out what we can find out about multiple exceptionalities. And it has not come up in conversation as of yet, you know.
Amazing. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Dan, you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Brenda. So I think it's an amazing initiative, obviously, and very exciting for a lot of students. The question is it just a pilot project or it's something that it's intended to be permanent? And the second thing, the second question was around, I think it was touched on, normally it will be a presentation, they will have a package with criteria and everything. How is it going to be, I guess, popularized among parents and students? And what, I guess, who would qualify in terms of age? I mean, is it just going to be like the grade 12, or you have to be, you can be anywhere in the high school to start with the training for a specific, I guess, skill? And I think the third question would be if we can get a copy of the presentation, because I think it was great, and I think some of our members of the association will be happy to hear about.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Okay, so Martha, maybe I will start. I think there were a few questions there. In terms of the presentation, I believe that was a copy sent out, but we can definitely find out about getting that out to you if it wasn't sent out. And as well, just to clarify, so the project search was an outcome of our pilot project. So we found out about it, we explored it because of the pilot project that we were involved with. It's a project to support, a ministry project to support students with developmental disabilities. And so there's, when we say the word project, it's probably a little bit on our end that we didn't clarify. So the ministry pilot project, the project search is an endeavor that would continue on, and it would be a yearly renewal. So it's something separate from our ministry project. So hope that answers your question there. In terms of what it's going to look like publicity-wise, as Martha mentioned, pre-COVID, there was pretty much a set standard of what we would be providing to, make it public, to let people know about it. But I imagine that we're going to try and mimic something to that effect, where it would be in the virtual world, depending how things pan out. But once we know more, we will be sure to relay that information. So plans would be for an open house, plans would be for parent information sessions. Application packages would be relayed to parents, would be shared with parents at these opportunities. I'm not sure, and if there's anything else that we could add to that at this point in time. Martha, is there anything else that I'm missing?
I think there was a part of the question that pertained to the appropriate intake point in secondary school for this.
Right.
Yeah, project search, as we said, it's typically undertaken for a student in what is considered to be their final year of secondary school. And the reason for this being is that the community partners who are part of this project then act as a support once the students are out in the community at their jobs. So they follow through in the adult world with these students. And I think that's a critical connector piece. So that final year can look different depending on the student. A number of students with developmental disabilities opt to stay until year 7. And if they were deeming to do that, they and their families would say, all right, we would love to be in the program if we're eligible, and this is the year coming up that we feel will be the final one. I think we have to exercise some flexibility there, because different families, students choose to leave at different junctures. So if they're deeming it to be their final year, whether it's 5, 6, or 7, or 5, 6, or 7, then that's in their court, right? I think that was it, Lisa.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Deborah, you had your hand up again?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. It's actually a little bit on Brenda's point earlier regarding the, acknowledging and accommodating students with either multiple exceptionalities or physical disabilities. I also want to add to that students with developmental disabilities who may have limited or no speech. This may already have been taken into consideration. I don't know, but how can it be ensured that they can also take part in this program? Because oftentimes, I'm sure that any teacher or therapist who has worked with a student with a communication disorder, oftentimes they really are capable of a lot more that they can communicate. So I just wanted to add that into Brenda's point as something that is discussed and looked at further.
Thank you for that. As we heard in the video tonight, I think that Project Search really tries to focus on what students can do. So that would be something that, of course, would be taken into consideration. If there's many skills that our students have that would make them employable, then for sure they would be student candidates that would be considered. But thank you for sharing.
And that might also be, if I might say, tied to the nature of the internships that develop over time, right? and the skills required for them, they may be able to group internships in such a way that some of them require a different level or a different type of communication skills, right? So we have to look at what those are in the hospital environment.
That's what I was thinking. How can the internships be looked at so that they provide a wide range of skills for this different students?
Yeah. And some of that's a negotiation, of course, with the hospital and what they have to them in that realm. So it's definitely going to be an interesting learning experience for everyone. But all of these things are very much on our minds. Please understand that.
Thank you.
You know, and I think at the end of the day, it's super positive. I mean, it's going to have, you know, you're going to have to explore it. It's going to have some bumps and bruises along the way. It may not be perfect for everybody, but, you know, I think just giving some considerations and having the discussions. But I think it's fantastic. I've seen this before, you know, historically with other offerings, and I'm glad to see that I know that we're going to jump in there. That's awesome. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And just to confirm for everybody that the presentation is in the package for today's meeting. So if you have any other questions that come up after, just let Lisa or Martha know.
Thank you, Brenda. And I'll put the video in the chat as well just before we leave. But thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, both of you, for being with us.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, guys. Okay, up next, so we have another presentation this evening. Up next, we have the After School Skills Development Program presentation. And so joining us is Jody O'Reilly, and Jody is our Special Education Coordinator, and Karen McCarthy, one of our Special Education Consultants, who will be presenting on this. So over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. The most stressful part of this right now is hopefully the presentation coming up. So if I can do that, the rest of this will be okay. So give me 1 second for pulling this up. Thanks, Brenda. Okay, I think I got it. We good? And now I can't see anyone, so hopefully we're good. So yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
We're good.
Yeah, awesome. I got through that. So this will be easy, the rest of this. So anyways, we're excited to be here, Karen and I, to talk to you about the After School Skills Development Program. It's been a bit of work in the making, but we are happy to be able to share it with you today and share a little bit about how it came to be, who's involved, and what we are running to support our students. So what is the After School Skills Development Program? So it's a 2-year funded project from the Ministry of Education. And school boards were tasked with developing some sort of after-school skills development program that supports students with ASD as well as students with other special education needs. So it was left up to boards to decide what they would like to run and what they would like to develop, with the program focus of social skills, communication skills, self-regulation, and or life planning skills. So that was sort of the program focus, and it was up to boards to decide what they would like to do with the money and how they would like to support these students with that idea of the program focus there. So the chiefs, myself, Karen, Camilo, actually at the time, we started this planning back in the spring, thinking about what would we like to do and run to support these students. And it was also, we were looking at, do we do something that's in person? Can we do something in person? It's an after school skills program. And can we do it in person? Are we going to do it virtually? And we weren't really sure given the climate that was happening at the time, but we landed on a virtual program, which opened it up nicely across our region. So it wasn't concentrated at any one particular area in Halton or within our school board, but we were able to open it up to all of our students because we decided to run virtual programming, which worked out given the in and out that we've had this year with in-person and online learning. So the two programs that we decided to run are actually two evidence-based programs that do focus on social skills. One is for the elementary age children, and that's the Children's Friendship Training. And the other is Peers, and it's also evidence-based, and it's focused on social skills for adolescents, so for the older students. And we were actually able to pilot the Peers program a year or two ago in two of our schools, in two of our high schools, and it went really well. And we were looking to actually pilot the Children's Friendship Training as well in one of our schools last year. And unfortunately, it was during the shutdown, so we never did We never were able to run it during that time, but we knew these were two programs that had the focus that the ministry was looking for. They were evidence-based, and they were going to be able to support our students with this program. So I'm going to talk to you about one of the programs. I'm going to talk to you about Peers, and then I'll pass it to Karen to talk to you about the Children's Friendship Training. But the Peers program, so it's a 16-week program, and again, it is a virtual program. It's one session per week, and it started last week. It runs from 4:30 to 6 with them. So it's a 90-minute program for our older students. And the target audience is higher functioning ASD students in secondary, as I mentioned. We landed on approximately 10 students per group. This was based on the outline of what the Peers program, the research for them outlines that 15 students is typically the max for the group. You want it to be large enough that you're able to break off into small groups, but not so large that it's overwhelming that everyone has a chance to participate. So we landed at about approximately 10 students, and that also fit with what we created in the summer with the summer learning program. We recognized that it worked with the 10 students with the staff that we had. So we said approximately, and we kind of landed there as well. And the other piece that was really important, and also part of the ministry funding mandate, was the parent engagement throughout the program. So the research through the Peers program has shown that when parents are engaged and supporting their child, there are greater outcomes for the child. So every week they have homework. I know that they were given homework last week, and they have homework every week that they end our children with. So it was important that parents would be willing to participate and engage. There's common language that's used, and they need to make sure that they're following up and that their child is doing the homework and they're using the same language so that the outcomes are greater for those students. So the participation requirements to struggle making or maintaining friendships, they must be interested in attending the program voluntarily and consistently attend. You know, they are teenagers, so we know that parents might be interested in this program, but if the child isn't interested in attending, then they are not really going to get the what we're looking for them. So they really had to be interested in attending and participate voluntarily for them to participate in this program. They must have verbal communication skills, must be able to participate in a virtual group setting without additional support. And again, back to that idea that parents must be willing to participate as well and support their child. So we outlined the logistics of the program, as well as the participation requirements and some of the criteria for the program. And we shared that with our department heads. And the department heads were asked to meet with their special education consultant and come up with a list of students that they think must fit this fit the requirements of participation. And through that, we then screened. So there's a screening process as well. Our BAs were able to screen. So I think I have it here. Actually, just 24 students that were put forward. From our department heads across the board. 6 actually declined participation for a variety of reasons, and that's just, they might have been busy. I know that a few in the Children's Friendship Training Program, they felt that, they didn't want any more online activities, but were interested if we were going to do something next year, maybe in person. So for a variety of reasons, they maybe declined, but we were able to screen, and we have 11 participants in the Peers program, which is great. So it fit right into how many we were hoping to take. So that was really successful in terms of the topics of instruction. And I won't read them through, it's in the package as well, so I won't read them all through for you, but a few of them are, handling rumors and gossip, making phone calls to friends, choosing appropriate friends. In addition, I know that Peers has created incorporated some of the virtual components as well that we are in now. So doing video calls with friends as an example. And of course, how do teenagers communicate? They text mostly. They're not making phone calls anymore. So I know that they've incorporated that as well. So those are some of the topics of instruction that are covered in the Peers program. And speaking with the group that is running the program, I know that it was a successful first day last week, and they're looking forward to it again this week. So I'm going to pass it over to Karen now, and she's going to look at the Children's Friendship Training.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So Children's Friendship Training is for our younger students, primarily in elementary school. So it's a little shorter than the Peers. It's 12 weeks as compared to the 16-week program. And it's slightly shorter in time as well, just because their attention span is less, usually in elementary. So it's 4:30 to 5:30. There's a similar 10 students per group. And the parent engagement, again, is an expectation throughout the program. As Jody mentioned, kids do better when their parents are engaged in the program. So that was kind of a condition of admitting the kids to the program. Next slide. So again, the requirements are very similar to the peers. An ASD diagnosis or other social challenges, kids with ADHD, etc., in grades 2 to 8. They are kids who primarily need some extra support to establish and maintain friendships. Again, for this program, like for the online, we chose kids with verbal communication skills just because of the nature of the online program. Must be able to participate in a virtual setting with minimal support. They also need to be motivated to make friends and interested in making friends and wanting to attend. They must demonstrate emerging social skills, meaning they're interested in peers, interested in playing games, but they just may not know how to get involved, and that they want to have friends. And then again, the parents must be willing to participate. Similar to peers, the kids in consultation with the Spec Ed consultant put a list of names forward, and then those names moved on to the next level where parents were contacted. Some parents declined, again, for reasons they have lots of other things going on or just wasn't the right time. And then they were screened by our CYC. Our child and youth counselors screened with a questionnaire so that they could get the most compatible group for the 10. So these are some of the topics, very similar to the peers, but you'll see they're more developmentally appropriate or age appropriate. So they don't talk about some of the higher level issues that kids deal with in high school, but you can see that they're pretty much similar in how to make friends. What are the key factors in making friends? The staff that are involved, it is a multidisciplinary collaboration. So currently for this program, there's CDAs, communication disorder assistant, behavior analysts are involved, child and youth counselors, educational assistants, and teachers with Spec Ed qualifications. All the teachers for this session are all either certs or sets they teach in or self-contained classes. So they all have had experience in special education. So we are running 5 groups. So there's 1 peers and we have 1 primary, 2 junior classes and 1 grade 7 and 8. So we were fortunate that we had enough kids from across that, those age groups that we could offer those. I did have the opportunity to pop into the grade 2-3 one, and they're cute as buttons. I was so proud of them. I mean, they're doing something that's hard, right? With autism, making friends, this is kind of a complex thing, but they were all so engaged. They were all like looking at the instructors, following along. It was a little quiet. It was the first session, so a little bit, intimidated. But then I popped into the games when at the end, they play a game, and they were all really involved. And so they had their homework assignment as well. It's supposed to be fun homework, but it's tough for these kids. So we'll see how the session goes this week. But the teacher called me right after. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I loved it. They were so good. It went as well as could be expected in a virtual platform." So I'm proud of the teachers and the educators as well, because this was written for a face-to-face, so they had to adapt it to virtual, meaning they had to find virtual games online. So some of the games they suggest you can't play virtually. So I think it's a great collaboration, and I hope the students and the parents, get what they need to get out of it. Next slide. So just a little bit about data collection, because we know Rhonda and some of you out there that like the data. So we wanted to make sure we added that. So there is a pre and post survey to measure growth over the course of the program. For the peers, the student and parents are involved in the survey, the pre and post. For the little ones, for the elementary, it's just the parents that are asked to do a pre and post. At the very end of the program, a feedback survey is given to staff and parents regarding the program, just to help us inform future programs, because it will be offered again next year, so that we can always make it better and make a little tweaks to it. So that's basically the program. We just kind of wanted to give you a brief overview as to what it's all about, if you've been hearing about it. And we might be able to come back later just to tell you at the end how it did roll out in 16 weeks from now.
That is awesome. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm on like a feed. Yeah, thank you, Jody. I don't need to hear my voice twice. Deborah, you have your hand up. So just one second. I just want to say it's awesome. I don't have any questions, but I did want to say really quickly that the slide, Jody, that you showed for the peers, I mean, I'm reading that like my 15-year-old could use. So I mean, like, you know, I was really pleased to see that it was age appropriate, obviously, and very typical. And, you know, things that, you know, it was nice to see that it wasn't watered down and it wasn't like, well, we shouldn't. I mean, that is the stuff, like I said, I can name a bunch of neurotypical teens that can utilize assistance in those areas. So I was really pleased to see that list because I think that that's awesome. And, you know, we know that teens that age struggle. So to see the ability and the focus on helping them with some of those, you know, fantastic pieces that they'll carry with them, it was great. So thank you for sharing. Deborah, you have a question?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I agree with Brenda. It was fantastic. All the topics and areas were very, yeah, exactly age appropriate and appropriate to the times. I did have one question in regards to the participation, the selection process. I know, and again, I brought this topic up at the last presentation as well, but in terms of the students have to be verbally, have to have verbal communication skills. So I know that when it's done virtually, is it done on Microsoft Teams? Because if that's the case, there is a chat feature here. And to me, it just seems it's not really being inclusive of all students at all skill levels. If right off the bat, we're saying, oh, well, you know, you have to be verbally communicative. Well, what about the students who aren't, but they know how to text, they can type, they can use Proloquo to go. Are they not worthy of and wanting to make friendships? They probably are. And in reality, most kids these days and teens are texting all day long anyways. I mean, is anything really verbal anymore? So I was curious as to why that is a requirement, and does it have to remain that way? Like, can modifications be made so that other students who may not be fully verbal can participate?
Thanks, Deborah. You guys want to talk that?
I think, Deborah, you're bang on, and it's not. Was our pilot, so we were trying to just work our way through, but definitely next year we looked at having a wider net. And if kids were very proficient with Proloquo, I don't think we would have excluded them, to be honest with you. If it had to be more that they're at the level of back and forth exchanges. So they would have to have, you know, I ask you a question, you comment back, I ask you, and it's back. So we needed at least a 4 back and forth. So the students that were put forth, I don't think anyone, though, actually was really proficient in Proloquo, to be honest, but it's not that we would totally leave them out. So we are looking next time at grouping kids that were less back and forth. So, you know, from our understanding in the program, you have to kind of group them with similar abilities because that's the best outcome. So next time we were looking at having other kids, you know, maybe a group that's not quite as versed in back and forth and sort of working together with that. So I don't know if I answered your question, Deborah, but
you did. No, definitely you did. I understand this is new. It's a pilot. It's going to work its way out, like just like the other presentation we saw. I just want to make sure that is remaining a topic.
Yeah.
I mean, in the speaking from the autism community, I mean, the communication aspect is pretty high up there as an issue. So, and I noticed that you do have the communication disorder specialists on the team. So I'm sure that they would
Yeah.
This is their area. I mean, so they're going to have feedback and ideas on, and even the student's own teacher and, you know, the cert they're working with at school and everything would probably have feedback on this. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. And I think, Michelle, I see your hand up, but I just want to make a comment on that too. And I did notice the same. And I think that, you know, we've seen a shift, and I'm sure you're seeing it too. We see a shift now, and I've seen it even in applications for things like camps and programming, where it used to say, you know, verbal communication, and now it's just going to consistent communication. So we're seeing that shift from it necessarily being verbal, and what we're looking for is, like you said, Karen, is just that consistency. It doesn't even have to be a lot of verbiage, but enough to acknowledge and go back and forth. So, you know, we're even slowly starting to see that change in some association applications, like I said, because it was just, you know, your first place to go is the child verbal, or is the person verbal? And changing that thought process to be, are they a communicator, and what method are they using? So I'm glad to hear that, you know, that's something that it doesn't sound like you had the, if I will, the demand for it from students that might have been in that situation this year, but it's good to know that that's an option moving forward, and that you've already addressed what that might look like. So yeah, that's great. Michelle, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, hi. I just have a quick 3 questions actually. Can the parents request to be a part of the program? Do the parents know about this program, or is it just from the teachers?
So the teachers put forth suitable candidates for this time around. So parents didn't know about it. We didn't like put it in a newsletter or anything. So teachers, certs looked through their caseload and identified students with autism. So that's the first group that we looked at. And then so we had a list, and then from there they did their, you know, the CYC then did their screening to make it as homogeneous according to the way the trainings run. You need a homogeneous group to get the most progress. So that's how they kind of screen this time, because we have more students than we would take spots. So that's how we started it this time.
I will just add, sorry, just to add to that too, because there is criteria for both programs. It is, you know, a program that for peers, they have to be trained in peers to run peers. And we do have our 2 BAs are trained in peers in particular, and children's friendship training. They're both prescribed, and they both have screening criteria that have to be met. So we started with the certs and gave them the criteria of who might be. So it was open to everyone, but it was open from the certs and consultants to kind of make that decision of who might actually pass the screening then and be able to participate in the group. So that was also a consideration.
Okay, so then, so if the certs are, so if there's not enough, you said you were preferring to have about 10 kids in the program, and there's not 10 kids in one particular school, and yes, I understand this time you had to do it virtual. Hopefully virtual will be over sooner rather than later. How will you do it in person if there's not enough 10 kids from one school? How does that work?
Yeah, so that will be something we have to work out. Okay. But we had some preliminary conversation about it, and opening it up in perhaps different regions, and having it in one school, but not necessarily all students from one school participate in the program. So we would open it up at, you know, maybe one school within an area and invite all parents to, or invite the students from the area schools around there to participate in that program in person. So that's how we would get around that or manage that. Mm-hmm.
So will we end up?
I mean, I think those are details that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think those are details as we move forward to next year and looking at how well it works, because we may want to continue virtually and have a couple that are still virtual, and then have some in person as well. So I think those are still details we're looking to work out. But yeah, we had considered having one school and some children from around the school attend to that one school after school.
And so is that the reason why it's after school, or? Because I'm just thinking after school with a lot of these kids by that point they're overwhelmed.
Yeah, the funding actually was attached. It's specifically called the After School Skills Development Program. Okay. So it had to be after school. Mm-hmm. Okay.
When we originally had planned this before COVID hit, with Camillo, we had talked about having a hub, and then parents would bring the children to the hub. And that because it's only an hour, we would have them stay and we would do some training with them in another classroom so that their time was well spent for that hour. So, you know, that's a possibility for next year if we do go back face to face, is having, you know, more of a parent session while their children are being are in the children's friendship training.
Okay. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Is there any other questions? Just looking in the chat quickly. Deborah says she likes that idea. I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. No, it looks like we're good. So thanks so much. As always, if anybody has any questions, just let us know. We can reach out to Jody and Karen. We look forward to hearing the results of the survey for sure. And, you know, again, I think from the feedback here tonight, it sounds like an amazing program. And I imagine that, you know, you're only going to make it better. So thanks for coming and talking to us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Oh, thanks, Andrea. Okay, so we're looking at item 3.1, which is approval of the minutes. So you would have all been provided with a copy of the minutes from our January 25th meeting. Does anybody have any questions on the minutes? Yeah, Deborah, go ahead.
Me again. Sorry, I'm talking a lot.
No, don't. Do not apologize. I'd rather that than hear my own voice. So go ahead, Deborah.
That's true. Okay, I did notice on the minutes from the last meeting that it mentions that we are supposed to have policy review, inclusion, and range of placement options for identified students. But I noticed on the agenda today that it's not listed. So I was just curious, is it taking place or is it not?
Yeah. So it is. It's going to be coming for us on the March agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll be coming. It's actually, I'm just trying to see it on my notes here. Yeah, when we get to the board policy review, yes, we don't have any for tonight, but we do have that policy II-29, inclusion and range of placement options for identified exceptional students on the March agenda. So thanks for bringing that up, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Deborah. Was there any other questions about the minutes? If not, could I get a motion to move? Motion to approve, I mean, sorry.
I can move. It's Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. Moved by Nancy. Seconder? Sorry, I gotta check the chat. Can you guys, you know what, it would be easier. Can you guys just say who it is that's seconding it or moving it?
It's Deborah. I'll second it.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Deborah. Sorry. It's hard. I have a hard time switching back and forth for the chat sometimes. So thank you very much. Okay. Item number 4, declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations this evening? No? Oh, that's okay. No apologies. I have a barky dog too here sometimes. Business arising from previous meetings. I don't have any. Do we have the chart there, Andrea? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
Sorry, Brenda. I didn't know if you were going to present it first or if you were moving on. So I can wait until you go through it.
No, we have it here up on the screen. So if you want to go ahead and ask a question, go ahead. Okay,
I had a couple. There was a couple things in the minutes that were follow-up items. So I'm not sure if they're going to be covered later on. So one was I had agreed to put together some key points from the PAC on SEAC survey, which I did today. I'm just not sure what the next steps are with that. I've sent it out to everyone. There was a question that Pat Daly was going to follow up about the pro grant. So I'm not sure if there's information coming later on that.
So there is information coming on that later in the superintendent's report.
Okay.
Yep.
And what about, so the PAC on SEAC, the key points? So are we going to incorporate those? I'm just wondering what the next steps are with that.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of different ways, and I'm happy to hear from the group, but there's a couple of different ways. I mean, we can, certainly, you've sent them out, everyone can take a look at it and sort of decide. We can bring it back as an agenda item, go through them and decide how we want to handle them as a group moving forward.
Okay.
Rhonda,
Sure.
You have your hand up? Sorry, Maria.
That's okay. Rhonda can go, and then I just have one more thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I just
Rhonda, do you want to say something?
Hey, Maria, I had a meeting right up until 6 today. So, and I did see your emails and I only briefly read over them. So I didn't get a chance to really take a good look at what's there. I'm just wondering about that. It was just for me too late to, well, it's too late. I didn't read them. So I can't speak to them tonight at this point.
So
it was just the timing of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough for sure. I just wasn't sure what was happening next. I wasn't so much looking to have a big discussion today, but I just didn't want it to kind of fall off the radar there. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And sorry, Maria, if I could just make a point on that. I think that, you know, I don't know, I don't want to speak out of turn because Andrea is probably going to cringe, but, you know, if I look at an upcoming agenda, you know, I think it'd be a good idea to put it on there, maybe some of the areas that were identified that could use a little more attention than maybe some of the areas where we're doing okay. And again, have a conversation as a group on priorities, how we want to do this, you know, do we, you know, agree or disagree, and how do we want to do that as a SEAC committee? So depending on how much time it would take, I think if everybody has a chance to read through the email that you sent and make notes, and then we could put a space for that on the agenda for March and have a little bit of a more fulsome discussion on how we want to handle some of those recommendations. That would be my suggestion, but it's entirely up to the group as to, you know, if that's the way we want to do it.
Well, and I think that makes sense, and I think as well it kind of fits within SEAC goals. I mean, that's kind of where I think it fits best, and there's some overlap there. There's some things that are similar to what we have in our goals, so maybe it could be combined with that on the next agenda, because I assume we're going to be sort of tracking how we're doing with our goals going forward, right? So I think it fits there. Like I said, because it's anywhere, it wasn't on this schedule as a business rising item. I just wasn't sure how it was going to fit, because sometimes there's so much going on, right? I forgot that I had agreed to do that until I got the minutes, and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah,
I was supposed to do this.
No, I agree.
Go ahead. So the other thing is this transition planning item, and we talked about having a subcommittee, and the subcommittee hasn't met yet, which I understand everyone's busy. Not a lot of people put up their hand for it, and so on. So, you know, that's fine. But I'm just trying to understand, you know, we brought up some specific concerns from ABC, and, you know, nothing's happening. And we brought them up during the Spec Ed plan review in June. We brought them up through an association report in December. We haven't had any response. So I'd just like to maybe hear from staff what their intentions are of addressing our concerns.
Stephanie, do you want to take that?
Sure, I can definitely take that. I think that we were going to come together as a subcommittee. I'm not sure, Brenda, if you were having any further conversation with any of the people who had put their names forward to be part of the subcommittee.
I haven't.
Sure,
in full transparency, right. I have not, and again, I have not. So that I did drop the ball on that. I'm making a note of it right now to send out a note about that. Just couldn't keep all my balls in the air the last month.
I just didn't want to jump the queue because I think you were going to do that. So I think what's best, Brenda, is maybe you and I can connect after our meeting tonight, and we can get all of our members together and send a meeting invite and move that along.
Perfect.
Yeah, I understand that, you know, Brenda, you have a lot on your plate, and so, you know, maybe that committee itself isn't a priority, and I just don't want our specific concerns to kind of get, again, to fall off the radar because the committee isn't meeting, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's not a priority by any means, Maria. I just really think it's a matter of what our process has been to pull the committee together. So I feel pretty confident that if Brenda and I touch base about our next steps, then we can move forward with that.
I agree. And when I look at transition planning, I mean, I know that the agenda item was specific to association report, but obviously when I think about transition, you know, I'm thinking about all of our students and all of our agencies and organizations that are represented. So, you know, it certainly is not anything specific about leaving, you know, not prioritizing it because, you know, ABC is there. Exactly what Stephanie said. It's just been, I literally just didn't get to it. So we will do that. I'm glad that it was brought up. Stephanie and I will coordinate on bringing everybody together, and we'll have a conversation and move that forward.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So item number, thanks, Andrea, for putting that up. Item number 6, so Deborah already brought that up. The policy II-29, inclusion and range of placement options for identified exceptional students, will be on the March agenda. Okay. So SEAC goal setting update. So 2 items I wanted to bring forward, and one of them was around the SEAC sound bites. So Maria and I had a little bit of back and forth in combination with Andrea Hughes over the last week. SEAC members probably will have received that email on February the 11th that had a link or had the SEAC sound bites listed. We've taken a little bit of time to figure out how to make that a shareable document, with the idea being that it's obviously, if it's shareable, it's much easier to go in and make edits and changes and notes and all those sorts of pieces. Maria graciously took a shot at the first, what is SEAC, and did a bit of an edit to that and a review of that and sent that out to the group. So ideally, we'd like to get that out as soon as possible. So if you have the time to take a look at that, and just, you know, if everybody's okay with it, if you have some edits, you can suggest them to Maria, but if you're okay with it, let us know. We'd like to get that out to schools as soon as possible. And then, you know, what we'd like to do moving forward is, I think we currently have 10 sound bites, if I'm correct. And there's a lot of, most of those can be revised, edited, updated, you know, especially for things like virtual learning and things like that. So I do think we can work with the skeleton that we have for those. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to assign those to people. I think if everybody could take one soundbite, and you know, you can decide on which one. If there isn't one there that you're passionate about or one that you really want to speak to, if you could come up with a different topic and send one in, that would be great. But if we could each at least take one that we currently have to edit, review, and then new content, like I said, is always welcome. You know, we can start to pump those out, because I think that's the key, is if we're going to send them out, that we try to send them out on a regular basis so that the schools get used to seeing them. And part of what we want to do with that as well is work that in. So when we want to share those across as many opportunities as we can, and part of that will be sharing those on Twitter. And Maria and I had talked about, you know, having a little bit of a teaser that will come out on Twitter, and Andrea Ricci, we can talk about that. But you know, putting a little bit of wording and putting some key points or some key takeaways in advance of some of those sound bites to sort of get the interest going, or to get just to sort of introduce it. So just trying to generate a little bit of excitement, if you will, or enthusiasm, if you will, around the sound bite, so that when it comes out, people are looking to read it. So we'll want to put those for sure on our SEAC Twitter. I'll ask communications to retweet those as well. And then we want to send them out to all the schools for them to put in their newsletters. So what I would ask is we have been able to put it in a shareable document. So if we get that out, if people could just put their name beside one or more of the sound bites, and you know, when you would have it ready for. So if you could put a month there or a week, and if you want to add to that, just, you know, you can add to that document. So the document is a fluid document to be shared between everybody. You know, that's the way we've sort of discussed approaching it. Maria, have I left anything out on that piece?
Well, my idea was actually a little bit different about the teasers. So,
okay. Sorry, so that's the way I understood it. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes with emails, communication isn't as clear, but you know, but we can do one or the other or both. I was thinking more, we send out the whole sound bite, right? And then follow up with some points. So after, I was thinking more after, right? So, because I don't know how many people are going to read the whole thing, or they might read it quickly, and then you just send out just sort of that repetition thing, right? Where you send out some key points, just to kind of help retention, I guess. But we could do both or whatever. We could talk about that further. I don't know what Andrew might have some thoughts on that. You know, we could do a little bit of teasers and a little bit of follow-up. Like, we could get creative with it. I don't know whether you want to decide on the frequency, because in the past we had done them, and I know we talked about this a little bit too. In the past we had done them monthly, but I don't think schools do monthly newsletters anymore. They do weekly updates.
Yeah.
And I think weekly is too often. So I don't know, and we don't have enough to do weekly to get us to the end of the year. And we don't want to have that pressure of having to have new ones. So I don't know. I was thinking maybe every other week. I don't know what people think about that.
Yeah.
And maybe if there's some logistical order to how, I think for the first few, there might be some that make sense to go out. Like, there's another one, who's at the SEAC table. That could be a good number 2.
Yeah.
If there's some that makes sense to go out at particular times, like there's an EQAO one. I don't know what's happening with that this year, but
there's an IPRC one.
Yeah, that might make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's usually. So that kind of thing. So I don't know if you want to, I mean, we have a lot on our agenda. I don't know if you want to take that away and you and I can kind of draft something, or what you want to do. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we can certainly do that. And I think, you know, I don't want to necessarily spend time doing that tonight because we do have a lot on our agenda.
Right.
So for sure, I think if we can go through and sort of identify or make suggestions on when we think those would be good placements and frequency, and then, you know, I think what I'm really looking for in all of the process is just having some participation from our members around the table to help us make sure that we can keep these sound bites up and going out.
Yes, and the only other thing, so for new ones, and you know, hopefully other people have different ideas, because I think we kind of exhausted our ideas back at the time. But one thing I wondered about, and I don't know if anyone's well equipped to write it, but SEA equipment, right? That could be something that parents have a lot of questions about, and I don't know if we have that anywhere. And I know we tried to do this before, but I think it was with the old group. If every association could write one about their association, that would be really helpful, and or about the different exceptionalities, because I know our associations don't always line up exactly with a specific, some of ours do, like ours does and Deaf Hard of Hearing does, but some of our associations don't line up, you know, exactly with one-on-one. So we can have some different exceptionalities explained a little bit. Those are some other ideas.
Yeah.
And if, you know, if every association does one, then that kind of spreads the joy around a little bit too. So just wanted to throw that out there.
For sure. And I also thought about us taking a look at, you know, some of the requests for presentations. So, you know, I know that there's things that are certainly the top of, like, I think about things like, you know, we're going to get a presentation on the budget, and maybe not everybody wants to know about that, but I get a lot of questions on, you know, how is Spec Ed funded, and how does this work, and what is this, you know, so, you know, we know that we're interested in that budget piece. Maybe there's some value in doing a soundbite around, you know, what is the budget process and how is it different for Spec Ed? You know, something like transition, you know, that's another huge topic that we talk about a lot. So I think even if I were just to take a look at some of the topics that are of interest to this group and things that we've looked for wanting from staff, that could make up a couple of other soundbite titles or subjects. So that's the other thing that I was thinking. And I also thought too that there may be some value in us reaching out to staff, and I don't want to burden them, but I think it'd be great if we could have staff assist us with writing some of these sound bites. You know, if we went to, you know, I'm using budget and Erin's going to kill me, but if I went to Erin and said, Erin, can you give me a really quick snapshot overview of, you know, this, you know, the budget for Spec Ed, and have him do that and give credit there. And I think it just shows some collaboration, and we make sure the information is correct if it's coming from the source. So that was something else that I was thinking about also.
I thought about that. I thought about that too, Brenda. I was kind of afraid to
well, I said it's out there now. But, you know, like for SEA, like for the SEA equipment, we can absolutely talk about SEA. But I think it'd be great if Jen Thompson or the SEA, you know, that group sort of put a little blurb together. This is SEA equipment. This is how it works. This is, what's involved. I think that would be fantastic. So I'm okay putting it out there, and Stephanie, I can't see her face because her camera's off. Her hand just went up.
I'm here.
Okay, so
my hand is up.
If I could just say one thing really quickly. Yeah. If nothing else, I think for something like that, that's technical, really, staff should review it, right, to make sure that we got it right. So that would be my comment.
I would agree with that, Brenda and Maria. I don't think that there would be any issue. I think the issue would be keeping it to a sound bite because there's so much to be said. So to be able to just provide a little synopsis won't be an issue with some of the topics that you've given.
Amazing.
Trust me, we had that struggle too. Those were originally supposed to be like 3 or 5 lines. As you can see, they're all a page. So.
Yeah, it was super hard. It might be a little bit easier now because before we were putting them in print and trying to fit them into a newsletter. Now at least it's a link, so we probably have a little bit more room. But yeah, we couldn't narrow them down. But that would be great, Stephanie. I think if we can go through, and Maria, I'm happy, like I said, to take this offline if you and I want to sort of carry a little bit more of the brunt of this as far as the prep work and the detail of it, the logistics of it. I'm happy to do that. But I just wanted to hear from some of you guys around the table if you'd be amiable to owning, if you will, a topic or owning one of the existing sound bites and taking a crack at updating it for us. So feel free to jump in. Rhonda says yes.
Well, I can jump in. I don't mind jumping in, Brenda. I don't think I'm the one to, I wrote like at least a third of them. I do think we need some fresh eyes on them in terms of like, some of them are just, in my opinion, like I mentioned, a little bit boring. Like they're just sort of dry. Not the one on stress. I think you wrote that one. Yeah, it was good.
Right.
And I like the mental health one as well. I just think we need to, some of them are like, just a little bit dry. And if we had some fresh eyes and someone could take a look at kind of making them more exciting, if you will, that would be great. And then I love the idea of staff helping us out. I mean, they could probably write it in their sleep, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, keep it short, which would be tricky, and it's tricky. But anyways, I just love those ideas. And I love the idea of each association talking about who they are, because that's exciting as well.
Yeah. So I guess thank you, Rhonda. So I think the way that nobody's really putting up their hand. I think the way I would do it is if you guys are okay with it, Maria and I will go through them. We'll identify some of the, maybe good times of the year to put them up. Thanks, Deborah. We'll put some thought around which ones we could perhaps have staff participate in, and then go through them, and maybe we just take a stab at assigning them. And if you're adamantly opposed, then you can just let us know, hey, I am not interested, take me off, or I'd rather do something else. So I think that's probably the best way for us to approach it. And if, like I said, if we get negativity on that, then we can adjust our thinking. But that's where that's my sense of where I think we should go with it next. So Maria, I'm happy if you and I want to set up a meeting, and I think you're right. I think it gets lost in email. So maybe we can set up a Teams meeting and go through them. Maybe that way would be a little easier.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Did anybody have any other comments on the sound bites? I mean, it really comes all down to parent engagement. We're going to talk a little bit later about the program, but these are all ways for us to get, the word out for parent engagement. They know who we are. They know what it is we do. We want, we want schools to hear about it. We want, staff to know about it. I mean, we talk a lot about people not knowing who SEAC is and what we do and the work that we do and the things that we accomplish. And this is the perfect way to do that in a really quick snapshot and start producing content to get out there. So when you talk about parent engagement, this is a really good way. There's no shortage of communication in my mind. I think the more information people can get, the better. So I'll just leave you with that. Okay, next we have, Stephanie, did you want to, the other piece we have on here is the staff presentation survey results.
Sure.
Would you go over those?
Sure, I can do that. So
okay, perfect.
I started by asking the staff, the leadership team, for some suggestions. They've been around, many of them, for a few years. So they were able to speak to some of the topics that maybe we've had and we wouldn't need to repeat, or some that they thought would be worth repeating. I also did take a look at the Pack on SEAC calendar the monthly overview to see if there were any topics that we haven't included in the past. And the only two that came up were the BIPSA and EQAO. So I did include the BIPSA as an option there, and you can see that there's some interest. EQAO I've left off. Maybe that's something we can consider in the future because that's kind of up in the air with COVID and having the most current data. You can see from the results there that there was quite a bit of interest. The number one item is Special Education Summer Learning Program, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit in my superintendent report. I don't have much to share, is basically what's in my report. So I think it's important that we look at the ones that had the most interest, generated the most interest, and then the timing of those presentations, because some will be more timely than others. And I would say that we would have that summer learning program presentation as soon as we get more information from the ministry and we can put that presentation together. And we also asked about 2, 4, 6, 9 different topics. We've got 4 months ahead of us. So that's part of the conversation that I'll have with the leadership team. And if there's any feedback from this group with respect to the ones that may be more timely than others. So the summer learning program had the most interest. FASD supports was second. Third is behavior analyst services and supports, sort of tied with reading interventions, including Empower and Right to Read, and updates to the IEP management system. So those all had very consistent interest. Then it was the BIPSA and the math curriculum updates. Again, I would push that one until we have more information. We do have a group of people, both between curriculum services and we have some staff from Spec Ed who are part of some very initial conversations around the de-streaming of math. So that's an example of one that we would, schedule when it's more appropriate. And then SLP services and Tier 2 interdisciplinary support models were also, I guess, would be the bottom 2 that had that interest. So unless anyone's opposed to any of the topics, I think the approach we will take is to look at what had the most interest and look at the timing of that topic. If you're good with that, Brenda.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm always big on the will of the committee, and it's great to see what I was really happy to see was the variance of topics. I mean, there's some I wasn't expecting to see. I think it's great. So yeah, I agree. Let's take a look at the ones that garnered the most interest right off the bat. Let's see where we can fit those in or make those work, and then kind of work our way through it. And if there's some that we need to hold off for a little bit now because we are waiting for some more information, I'd rather we have a more fulsome piece.
Sure. And I think it's also worth noting the second and third question asked about mental health and well-being presentations, but we did ask an open question at the end. So maybe we should go to that next, which is question 4, Andrea. We asked people for suggestions. Those were just the suggestions that we had come up with to see if anyone had any other topics. So one of the topics is how to manage the use of technology effectively to avoid screen time exhaustion. The other one is around LD interventions and supports in elementary school. And then the other topic is around supports and interventions for students in a regular classroom placement, with particular emphasis on secondary students. And you can read the rest of that comment, but it is a focus, which is a great focus as well, with secondary students and virtual learning. So my thoughts around these topics would be to go back to my leadership team as well and see if we can either do a separate topic on one of the suggestions that were brought forward, or incorporate some of those points into one of the topics that we've already put out to the group. And then lastly, question 5 specifically asked the question that came from SEAC, wanting to be able to provide input on any of the presentations. And there's some very specific input there that's been provided as well. So we definitely will take all of that information into consideration. And I do notice that Maria has a comment there.
Yeah.
If you want to go to her before we move to 2 and 3, I'm not sure if that's what she means.
For sure.
Sorry, my comment was back to the SEAC goal schedule. So I don't know if you're finished on the survey. I didn't realize we were moving on past that schedule. So when you're done,
sure.
Stephanie, I can go.
Okay. So number 2 and 3, we do have our social workers They are putting together some presentations that are intended for parents. They have offered, if there is any interest at the SEAC table, to make a presentation to the group. It doesn't necessarily need to be on all of the topics, and it could be a combination of based on what the interest is here. So you can see that student mental health had the most interest, followed by anxiety, early signs in a pandemic. That's an example where I could say that we could have our social work team come to the table, do a presentation on student mental health, and maybe incorporate some of the other points that we asked, rather than having 6 separate presentations, if you understand. And there was quite a bit of interest there.
Is there any questions on this piece? No? Okay, thanks, Stephanie. That's great
So then
on
we're
that.
planned for the next few meetings, our next 4 meetings.
Okay, perfect. We're going to put up the, Marie, we're going to put up the goal timeline now. I just had those 2 that I wanted to make sure I got through. So I'm sorry if we jumped around a little bit. So here it is.
Sorry, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention on this schedule? Okay, sorry. When you said 2 things, I didn't realize the survey was one of them, but that's okay.
That's okay.
No worries. So just item number 4, review the results of the PAC on SEAC survey. So that's where some of the points that I shared, I guess, could be incorporated into there. But also, it says here, review the results once they are received, which we've done, and then do a stop, start, continue. So the status says completed on January 25th. So we did do a review on January 25th, but we haven't done the stop, start, continue. So I don't know if you want to split that into 2 separate things or just clarify the status, because that piece is still outstanding.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to share there.
Okay. So we can separate those out. I guess we have to take a look at, I mean, there's no reason why we can't get that stop, start, and continue. I think we just have to talk about, how we want to do it and when we want to send that out. Sorry, I'm just trying to see here.
Yeah, I think that the next sentence also was related to the stop, start, continue with review all comments and keep comments anonymous.
Yes.
So that was kind of one, and yeah, that's fairly straightforward. And if we do it offline, then it saves time.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we can just do it like that, and then compile, compile the comments or themes from that, and obviously share them anonymously. But yeah, I think we can set that up and send that out between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, like, can you do it in a survey format where it's anonymous, where you're not identifying who or something? I don't know.
I think so. I mean, Andrea, we can work on that, but I think we can do that. Stephanie, sorry,
Yes,
did you?
we can. And that's what we did with the survey that we just used. It was anonymous.
Yeah. Okay. So we can do the same thing and aim to get that out before the next meeting.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to get lost because it was sitting beside a status of complete. So
for sure. Okay. So yeah, we'll make a note and we'll put that together.
Okay.
Okay, are we good to move on to item 7.2? Awesome. Okay. So 7.2, our ever favorite special education plan review. And I joke, it's such an important process, but every year we sit here about what's the right way to do this. And so we put together some thoughts around how we wanted to review it this year. And what we were thinking was to put together a special education plan subcommittee. And on that subcommittee would be SEAC members, whoever was interested, and staff. Staff would go through first and do a red line, and then submit it to the subcommittee, who would go through the documents and then bring it back to the entire group. So that was one way that we were thinking about doing it. Some of that work could be done offline. It would give an opportunity for those people who are really, really, keen to go through it, in a lot of detail, while not eliminating having eyes on it by everybody, but not everybody is necessarily interested in taking a chunk of it or reading it line by line. So we thought doing it like this would give an opportunity for everybody to participate, but for people who really want to be more involved to sit on that subcommittee. So that was the thought that we had. And Stephanie, do you have a template that you could show?
I don't have a template that I could show.
Okay.
Are you talking about the feedback, the form that we talked about?
Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. I left one part out here. So then, yeah, create a Microsoft Forms for feedback from all the members.
Right. So I do have some guided questions, but essentially what we thought is that if we have a subcommittee that's working on the red line version, we still wanted to give SEAC the opportunity to provide some feedback to the committee. So we would issue a form, and SEAC members could review the plan on their own time. And if there are any areas in particular that they wanted the subcommittee to take a look at, they could include that right in the form. And then the subcommittee would use that feedback from SEAC as well to make any changes to the plan. And it's a very brief, there's like 5 questions, essentially asking the member to take a look at the plan, if there's an area in particular, page, if there are any comments or concerns or considerations to the subcommittee, and any recommendations for changes and what that rationale would be. And I do understand that it was a really fulsome review last year. I don't anticipate that there are going to be a lot of changes. And I do think that this would be a great opportunity to have that subcommittee and still have all of the SEAC members have a voice in the process as well. And then what we would do is bring the final draft back to SEAC and then go from there.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Does anybody have any, Maria, I saw that you said in the chat you like that idea. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Deborah, good idea.
And if I could just add, Brenda,
go ahead, Stephanie,
if you don't mind. So we had also talked, and we've had numerous conversations about the consultation section of the plan. And in the business arising in March, we are scheduled to bring back an update to SEAC. So if we're going to be putting a subcommittee together, I think it would be helpful if we could have that meeting before the March SEAC meeting. So then we could talk about some of the ideas that we have in terms of the consultation and that the members may have who are on the subcommittee, and then be able to bring that update back to March as is noted in our business arising. So our first meeting would focus on that.
Okay, perfect. Is just, I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'm cognizant of the time. We can just do it via email. If there's people right now that want to put their hand up that want to be on that subcommittee, we can do that, or we can just follow up with an email and you can let us know. But it would be great to do that. I think it's a great idea. And I think it'll be a time saver. I think it'll be very thorough. And I think it'll be a good way of going through it.
Great.
Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody jump up with hands up yet. So we'll send that out in a follow-up email. I'll make a note of that, and we'll see if you can just respond back to let us know if you want to be on that committee. That would be great.
Brenda, did you want me to talk about the format?
Yeah, sure.
With you sort of the 4-pager, just so we don't come back in March, kind of moving ahead.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
So it won't take long. I'll talk while Andrea pulls it up. So I did see an idea last week, and it's been posted on our public website. And at our last meeting, we had discussed having a format that possibly an infographic. And the sample that I've got here, let's see if she's got it. Yes. So it just got posted by Sita, our Equity and Inclusion Officer. And it's a nice 4-pager because it has space at the top, just sort of a preamble, overarching piece. It's engaging, it's a visual. These are some of the comments that were made at our last meeting. Has the opportunity to embed any of the links that we want to embed with respect to policies, etc. And then what I really liked about her model is this pie, and we're getting there, here we go. So it's 8 sections. And it would be a great opportunity to highlight, say, 8 key areas from the spec ed plan, sort of the most frequently asked pieces around placements, perhaps, IPRCs, IEPs, et cetera, et cetera. One could be SEAC. And then to the left, you'd have that space for information. I'm sure we can work through it. And then the next page also gives space for some general information that we determined to be really essential information. And then there's a visual beneath that. So we may take a look at a process that we want to highlight. I was thinking of the IPRC process, sort of beginning to end, what that journey could look like. And then the last 2 pages that are in this example are a glossary of key terms. And in special education, we have lots of key terms. And I think we have a number of pages at the end of the plan currently. So we could focus on maybe a page if we don't need both pages with some of the key pieces. And then because we still need to submit our plan in full, we would have a link to the entire plan if somebody's interested in going through it. I just really liked the format that they used, and I thought that may be something as a subcommittee we can take a look at as well.
I love it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, I love it. I love the visual. I love the way that it's presented. I think it's, fresh and new for, we haven't done this before with our group. So I really like it. So thank you for bringing that to us, because I think that I think it's a great idea.
And then we could use it as well for our board website. So we, got a little group that's working on updating that. So then we could have the visual there as well.
Absolutely. Yep, okay, that's perfect. Love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie on that, or any other questions about the subcommittee before we move on? No? Okay. All right. Thanks for putting that up, Andrea. Okay. 7.3, budget priorities discussion. So we knew that we had a packed agenda for tonight, and we know that this is a priority. There's no doubt about it. We do have Aaron Lofts coming to present to us at our April SEAC meeting to talk more about the SEAC budget, to talk about the spec ed budget, how the funding works, all those sorts of pieces. But we obviously would like to get feedback from SEAC on budget priorities. And we do this every year in some format. Rhonda has she has a great story about, how feedback before has actually transpired into, something that's come out of a budget with the addition of itinerant staff before. So we do know that our budget considerations are taken seriously by staff. They're put forward when they're considering their budget allocations and their plans for the following year. So what we were thinking was that perhaps if members wanted to send an email with some budget priority suggestions to myself with a copy to Andrea, we can start compiling those and then send them back to the members for review before we put it forward from SEAC. So thoughts on that? I think it still gives a great opportunity to do that. We'll compile them, we'll share that, make sure it's reflective or representative of the group, and then put that forward. And then, like I said, Aaron will be coming and doing a formal budget presentation for us at our April meeting. Yes, good. Going once, going twice. Okay. Sounds like that's a plan. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. Item number 8. Stephanie, you're back up again. 8.1 for superintendent's report.
Thanks, Brenda. I'm going to start with staff professional development and training. We do have a number of teachers who are attending the 10th annual Solutions for Learning conference hosted by the LDHH on Friday, March 5th and Saturday, March 6th, including teachers from elementary and secondary, as well as some of our itinerants. So we're very pleased that they'll be able to participate in that. Our IEPs for term 2 will be going home this week for elementary students, and by March 12th for secondary students, and IEPs will be sent home electronically. The summer learning program, we already spoke about it briefly. We have received notice that there will be additional learning opportunities to support special education and mental health this summer. We don't have any details, and once we have more information, the plan is to bring it back in a presentation. World Autism Day is recognized in April. I know we have an association report on it as well this evening. A memo is going out to all schools this week regarding the Raise the Flag campaign. And the memo includes how schools can register for the flag and provides access to the Educator Toolkits. With respect to mental health and well-being, our BAs, CYCs, and chaplains participated in a webinar delivered by School Mental Health Ontario. The webinar focused on mental health promotion, specifically creating caring conditions for learning in person and virtually, with a focus on social emotional skill building. School Mental Health Ontario resources were shared, as well as specific board examples, and two of our very own CYCs, Tim Henry and Elaine Rolfe, were both asked to share their ideas at the provincial webinar, and were highly recognized for their great work. So we're really proud of them for representing HCDSB. In terms of our educational assistants, we did have a PA Day on February the 5th, and the EA PA Day agenda included 3 online sessions in ABA interventions, as well as some time to work through guiding questions to develop a self-care plan with our EA managers. FASD training was offered, and all 11 of our itinerant educational assistants participated in the 6 sessions of FASD over the last couple of weeks. And lastly, just making a point back to the after school program, we have 5 EAs who are supporting the 5 different programs after school, and we've received excellent feedback from the EA team, and they're very excited to be doing this work, and we're very happy to have them be part of the team. And then the last item is with respect to the program update. If you'd like, Brenda, I can continue and I guess give a general overview, and I'm not sure if we want to have a discussion at this point or if it's going to be part of our SEAC discussion at the end of the agenda. But a brief update is that we do have funds that have been made available to SEAC. We received notice today that the funds are available. And there was some information, more detailed information, that was forwarded to Brenda. And I think that we're going to be discussing it further in the SEAC discussion. That's how we had left it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
And that's the end of the report.
Okay, thanks so much, Stephanie. Sorry, can you guys hear me? I keep freezing.
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So, Nancy, is there any questions for Stephanie? Sorry, first of all, on her report? Nope. Okay. We'll move to the trustee report then. Nancy, do you mind giving us the trustee report?
Not at all. Good evening, everyone. Not a lot to report on this one. At our February 2nd meeting, the only action item that was passed that evening was Milton number 9 elementary school. It was the capital. We've approved the capital planning process for the Milton number 9 Catholic Elementary School. At our last meeting, of note, of importance, is some policy updates, but most importantly, the equity and inclusion policy that has been sent back to or referred back to the policy committee and will be going out for stakeholder feedback. So everybody should be receiving an email to provide feedback on that. And lastly, the multi-year strategic planning committee had its first meeting. I'm hoping that everyone received the email from Trustee Duart. He has been selected as chair of the multi-year strategic plan, and he sent out an email, I believe, on February 11th. It was due last Thursday, I think it closed, for feedback on some changes to the mission and the vision. So we were looking for feedback to meet at our next multi-year strategic planning. So that process has started. And I will keep you up to date, or whatever trustee is giving the report will keep you up to date on the progress of the multi-year strategic planning committee. Other than that, there was nothing else to report on as the meeting ended shortly after the action items. There has, I'm sure as some of you have noticed, the ministry has brought in asymptomatic testing into the schools. There will be more details that come out on that, and when we have more details on what it's going to look like, we'll be able to share that as well. That's it.
Great. Thanks so much, Nancy. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay. Next, we're moving to 8.3, which is the association report, Autism Ontario. Deborah, over to you.
Great, thanks, Brenda. As Stephanie mentioned, the Raise the Flag event is being held on April 6th this year. It's usually the World Autism Awareness Day is usually on April 2nd. every year, but it is Good Friday this year, so Autism Ontario is recognizing it on the 6th. There will be no in-person events this year due to COVID. I just wanted to give a little brief here of what Raise the Flag ceremony means. And it's through the simple act of raising a flag, unites families, schools, communities, government, and professionals, recognizing World Autism Awareness Day, and celebrates autistic people while bringing to light the systemic barriers that must be removed to create more supportive and inclusive Ontario for them. So to register for these events, either the schools can register or individual families. That would be done online, and I put the link right there on the report. The registration is due by March 10th. If you'd like a flag, that Autism Ontario will send you one. I also wanted to note that schools, educators will have access to the Educator Toolkit, which we include on this website provided there, and it just has activities and educational videos. And honestly, we have a lot on our website on Autism Ontario, which is in the next part of my report there. A lot of educator toolkits that that could be really useful. So I would encourage any staff to take a look at that. So as I mentioned, there's the website for Autism Ontario, and we do have various chapters because we are such a large organization in the province. So if you click on Find Chapter drop-down menu, you can find all the regional chapters throughout the province. I also wanted to note that we do send out newsletters, and to me, I personally like this method the most because it gets sent to my email, and then it gives all the updates because there's always so much going on in Autism Ontario. So I find the newsletter, I really encourage families to sign up for that. Also, the Facebook page for Autism Ontario Halton Region Chapter. I put the link there for the Facebook page, and Halton falls within the Central West chapter of Autism Ontario, and this region covers Peel, Waterloo, Wellington, Hamilton, Halton. So for new initiatives, I know that it's been discussed in previous meetings how associations are supporting virtual formats during the pandemic, and so Autism Ontario did quite quickly transition all of our the programs, that some ones that we typically do, we transition them to an online format. Some of those included the parent and sibling support groups, the educational and training seminars, leisure and social programs. So there was yoga, martial arts, there was cooking, there was art class. We also did some activity packages that you could register for online, and they were delivered to individual homes from local businesses. So, arts and crafts type things, or sensory related items. I know we got a lot of positive feedback on that. That's always exciting for the kids to receive something like that. And twists on the fundraising initiatives. So that's a big one. And we came up with there was one that was a virtual wine tasting and cooking with all items delivered to your door. And it went over really well. I don't have too much detail on it other than the response was, it was quite well received. In general, all events require pre-registration. And typically we try to make the events free of charge to register, but occasionally there's a small cost, and usually it would be under $10. And just as a note, obviously, given that the events are virtual right now, Respite Services are not available, because sometimes at some of the events held by Autism Ontario, there actually will be respite services so you can bring your child, and they'll be qualified staff or qualified people there to watch them. So I kind of going on that point, I will say that even though the virtual events have gone well, it is impacting the families for sure, because the feedback we're receiving anyway, specifically from parents, is that a lot of these events that are whole family type events, it was really a connection. It was a place for parents to connect. And you know, it's just so important. So that is something that definitely has been that's been difficult for everybody in the community. And we're hoping to get back in person sooner than later, but until then, the virtual continues, and we try our best. And that's it. So if anyone has any questions, I'm all ears.
Thanks so much, Deborah. That was an amazing report. And it's great to see the thing. I mean, I like the wine tasting, I'm not gonna lie. But it's great to see, you know, I see that from some of the other associations that I'm a part of. It's been fantastic to see how they have been able to adapt to keep their members connected, to continue to do fundraising, to, you know, keep people engaged. So it looks like Autism Ontario is doing a fantastic job despite, you know, all the restrictions right now. And we know how important it is to try to continue some of the programming and some of the things that, you know, our kids have gotten used to and families have come to rely on. So thank you for, you know, thanks for sharing this. And I would imagine a lot of associations are doing this, but it's really great to see the stuff that's happening, and always great to see. That's interesting about Autism Light It Up Blue Day.
Yes.
And so being April the 2nd totally makes sense why they're shifting it. That's great. And, you know, we'll show our support from SEAC. Maybe we can get everybody to put on some blue, and we'll take a photo for our Twitter.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I forgot to mention the blue itself. Yeah, that would be really great. I know that a lot of schools and classrooms, they do special little things around that day and dress up in blue. So yeah, it's
for
great.
Sure. Good. Okay. Is there any questions for Deborah at all? No? Okay. Thank you so much. That was a great report.
No problem.
My apologies too. My camera keeps freezing, and when I try to turn it off, I just get stuck. So you have to put up with my frozen face. Next, we have an association report from LDAH. And Samantha, welcome. It's your first meeting, and you're coming right out of the gates with an association report. So we love it. It's fantastic, and welcome, and let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you very much. All my colleagues recommended that I just observe and stay quiet, but they all know me really well, and that's not that's like not what I do. But being aware of the time, I'll just be super quick. And Stephanie already mentioned our 10th annual Solutions for Learning conference happening March 5th and 6th. So thank you very much. There are about 20 plus staff coming from HCDSB already, so that's really great. It is one of our biggest fundraisers as an association, and we've had to pivot and have it virtual this time around. So although that has been great in terms of a variety of speakers that we could get, I think being that it's on a Friday night and a Saturday, not as many people are signing up. So if you could spread the word of that for us, we would be very grateful. And then just in terms of new initiatives, I'll speak to them very briefly again because of the time. So we've just started a new executive functioning program for students in grades 9 to 12, and then elementary age students who are interested. We decided that we'd run like a parent group for those kiddos just because they're a bit young to develop those executive functioning skills on their own. So that actually was pushed back a week and started tonight. So hopefully it all went well for our facilitator. And then we have actually decided to start our in-person programming as of this week as well. So our social skills program, which follows very nicely, similar to the peers and CFT that was shared earlier on tonight, which was great to see. We have a CYC that works with us, and she will be navigating that 8-week program with small groups of kids in person, and not specifically for children with LDs and or ADHD, and we follow a very similar format where we encourage parent involvement. There's parent meetings each week. The kids have homework every week that they're supposed to do. She calls it home skills because she doesn't like the word homework, but it is very parallel to what the HCDSB is doing with those after school programs, so that is great to see. And then we also had a really great response to a new program that we just recently got funding from the Gailey Foundation for youth ambassadors. So we are currently in the midst of looking over applications of youth aged 15 to 24. I think we got about 13 applications, and eventually we'll want to bring that down to about 5 ambassadors that will work with staff and then speak about their lived experiences with LD to other youth through hopefully what will become in-person meetups and workshops that the youth ambassadors will be able to run, obviously with the support of our staff. But we're still in the early stages of figuring out exactly what that program would look like, but it's nice to see that we had some strong ambassador candidates. And thank you for welcoming me to my first meeting. It's nice to see, well, not see, but hear. It's nice to meet everyone.
Yes. And hopefully we will see each other one of these days.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Samantha. Like I said, I mean, it's great that you've come out of the gates running. We, LDAHH always puts out great information. It was interesting that Deborah had mentioned earlier about newsletters, because I make sure that I subscribe to all the newsletters for our associations. And, your group is amongst one of the ones that does put out a lot of information. So you have great programming, and yeah, so we look forward to having you participate in our discussions. And again, happy to have you here. Maria, you had a question?
Well, I just wanted to share something really quick, if I may. I didn't receive this information until the weekend, so not enough time to put it on the agenda. But ABC is having a virtual event on March the 7th. And there's a child psychologist from Australia who specializes in supporting children's emotional, social, and development needs. She has a master's degree in gifted education, so I guess she might be focused on gifted kids, but she will be talking about emotional, social needs, anxiety, all of that. I will send the information via email to everyone. It's free, it's virtual. It's on a Sunday afternoon, so I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware and everyone's welcome. Hopefully everyone can get something from it. And in particular, we do have some students who are 2E as well, so I just wanted to share that with the group.
Yeah, great. Thank you. If you don't mind sharing that information, the link, that would be fantastic.
Will do. Okay,
thanks so much, Maria. Okay, so we're moving on to item number 9, which is SEAC discussion. So we have 2 items here to go through. So the one is really quick, and just to let you know that we had a great meeting with our Spirit of Inclusion subcommittee. It was a little different this year, like everything else. But we met and we have chosen the winners. We won't be releasing the names yet of our recipients, because this meeting is being recorded and we don't want the recipients have not been notified yet. But we had, as always, some fantastic submissions. It's really always difficult to try to narrow it down. But we did. It was a relatively simple process, believe it or not, and we all came to a really quick consensus. So they will be notifying those recipients this week, and we will be inviting the winners and their administrators to our March SEAC meeting. I'm super sad we can't do it in person. It's always the highlight, I think. It's always such a nice feeling, but they will be here virtually with us at our March meeting. And then the second item for the SEAC discussion is what Stephanie had touched on briefly, and that's around the pro-grant dollars. So we won't have a lot of time to get into it tonight. Again, I'm cognizant of the time, but I know that we had a plan to do something last year and obviously got interrupted with that. So if we wanted to continue to have a conversation about maybe how to use up some of those dollars, whether we wanted to do an event virtually, or what we wanted to do with those. I thought it could be something that we could maybe the communications subcommittee could work on, and whoever else would be interested in that area could join us as well. But we do have some stuff that we can do with that. I don't have the information in front of me. I'm really sorry. My computer just keeps freezing. Stephanie, do you have some more detail around that? I know I'm leaving something out.
I do. Did you want me to share the amount?
Yeah, do you mind?
No problem.
As you can see, everything's freezing.
No problem. I can kind of go through a few of the highlights and the information that we were given. And again, the primary focus is still parent engagement, even though we need to run our events virtually, obviously. And the committee has been allocated $6,500 for a pro-grant project. It's quite a bit of money. I would also say that the information that needs to be reported back to the ministry for each of the pro-grants would involve the alignment of our project. So it needs to fall in one of the 4 areas: providing a safe and welcoming school environment, maintaining open communication with teachers, respecting parents as valued partners within the education system in relation to decisions about their child's education, and parents are informed about the content of the Ontario curriculum guidelines. So those are 4 broad overarching areas that we would need to take into consideration. And Brenda, you mentioned that you had some plans last year in terms of pro-grant, and I would be very open to hearing what those ideas are. And I'm just really mindful of the time that we have. You know, I said it earlier, but we only have 4 meetings left. So if we are interested in planning something or booking a speaker or more than a speaker, I think it would be helpful to get some ideas from the group for anyone that they have that would be interesting, and then we can move further along with that. But I'm completely open to that, but that is the amount of money that we have.
Thanks, Stephanie. And I agree. We, you know, we had looked before at sort of combining it with the SEAC showcase and doing, you know, sort of doing a combined so that we would have a speaker and do that piece. So that was what we were thinking. We had some speakers lined up. We had gone through and sort of vetted some and come up with some ideas around that. We can pull those back out again if that's, you know, a great way to sort of cut some time off. We do have that list. We had people submit, like I said, some great ideas around speakers and topic areas. Our big thing was checking for their availability. So we could start there as a starting point, perhaps, and pull those names back out and see if those are options and go to those people. It would save some time possibly, and see about maybe offering a virtual event. But that's just me off the top of my head, Stephanie. So if there's, you know, if anybody here has any quick ideas that you want to mention, and if not, yeah, I mean, we're running out of time. So
I think starting with some of those would be helpful, and I'm sure there's more discussion to be had, but even if you want to send them along on our end, maybe we can reach out to some of the speakers to help the group to see what the availability is, because that'll be a factor to bring back to SEAC.
For sure. Maria, you have your hand up because I have one more thought, so go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I just was going to say, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like, it seems to me that the work was more or less done last year. Like, I thought we even had a date and then it got rescheduled. I thought we had a speaker. I can't remember who they were, but I remember you guys presented a few different options and they all sounded good. And maybe with $6,500, we could have a couple speakers on a couple of different nights. I don't know, but I would definitely say, like, why reinvent the wheel? If those speakers can fit in to the requirements of the grant, then sure, let's do that.
Okay. So
that's just my thought.
Sure. Why don't I dig that up and send that out to everybody? We can dig up what the speakers were. 'Cause off the top of my head, Maria, you're right. I can't remember who they were, but I know that Andrea had submitted somebody, Michelle had submitted somebody. There's a couple others. So I think Jessica suggested someone. So we can bring up those speakers that we had, the one that we were going to go with, and then some of the other ideas and the topics. We can send those out to everybody via email. That's probably a great way to start, and then give us some thoughts on that. And at least we can start reaching out and inquiring about availability and cost to get the ball rolling. And I know that last time we weren't going to do it on one of our meeting nights, right? Like, we weren't substituting a meeting. So we we could probably offer this outside of our meeting as an additional event, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
also.
that's what I remember as well, Brenda. It was additional night.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So we can do that.
I was just gonna say, I think it should be, because I think we have there's lots of presentations people are interested in. There's lots of things on our goals list and so on. So I don't think we have the time for another speaker, but.
So maybe if we, where are we at? February, it's almost March. So maybe if we looked at something, you know, mid-May, that might give us enough time to get that put together and promoted. That's my thought. What do you guys think? I think that's probably realistic.
I think that's pretty realistic, and depending on the cost of the speakers, we could have a series of, you know, several, and pick a few dates, and people can decide what they want to attend, and then that'll give us time to get the information out to schools, and they could include it in their weekly updates, etc., so that we can have good participation.
Okay. So Andrea, I might tap on you to see if you can help me pull up that information that we had. So we can put that together. Yeah, you're probably right, Maria. They may be cheaper for virtual. So yeah, we'll look into that. The starting point will be who the speakers were and what they were talking about. Okay, perfect. That's great news, though. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. That's fantastic. I think that's great. I'd like to try to do something with it. If we can, we're always trying to make sure that we do some sort of parent engagement. So if the funds are there, I'd like to be able to utilize them as best we can. Okay. Okay, sorry. So meeting summary. Oh, sorry, where am I here? SEAC session number 10, meeting summary, next steps. I think we've had a couple of items. We need to pull together the transition committee to talk. We need to send out information about the speakers for possible events. We're going to send out the Start, Stop, Continue survey before our next meeting. And Maria and I are going to get together to go over this SEAC sound bites. I think that's most of the notes that I had made about some next steps. Our next agenda, our next meeting is Monday, March the 22nd. And the agenda will include a presentation from Pat Daly on the strategic plan, the Spirit of Inclusion Awards, and we're trying to do a summary of the student exceptionalities, the ONSAS data, if it's available. So that will be, or if it's ready. So that'll be on Monday, March the 22nd. For absentee, I only received regrets from Trustee Dwart. So I just need a motion that Marvin be excused.
This is Paul. I'll move.
Okay, thanks so much. So moved by Paul. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it, Brenda. Maria.
Thanks, Maria. Okay, fantastic. So all I need now is a motion to adjourn. Diane is moving to adjourn. Do I have a seconder? And Deborah's seconding. Thank you very much. Okay, our closing prayer. If you want to join me in the sign of our faith. I'll just give Andrea a second. I know Andrea always rush you on this. Thank you so much. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work, so that it may always be said of our every act, God saw that it was good. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you, or we'll talk next meeting. Look out for some emails from us.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, guys.